So I drank alcohol for close to 10 years, and alcohol was the biggest source of pain in my life. If I think back to almost every major problem, alcohol was linked to it. Not everything, right? Some things are outside of my control and whatever, but when I think about when I destroyed my personal training business, when I broke up with my girlfriend, when I ran out of money, the common theme in all these major problems that I had in my life was alcohol. When I threw up blood on a MacBook Pro after going out binge drinking on an empty stomach. I mean, there's been so many situations in my life that have had, or where I've suffered a tremendous amount of pain, and alcohol has always been linked to it. And I did this for 10 years, and I stopped and started more times than I can count. I just lost count because it was all the time. Most days I'd wake up with a hangover, like never again. Next day, 3 days later, whatever, I was drinking again. And I've now not drank for over 6.5 years, and my life has changed dramatically. I've helped thousands of people stop drinking alcohol with this YouTube channel. I've worked with hundreds upon hundreds of private clients. I've had thousands of conversations with people who want help stopping drinking. And I wanted to do something today where I talk to you about your drinking. But I want to say that I'm not here to belittle you. I'm not here to put you down. I'm not here to make you feel bad about the drinking, because I've been in your shoes. And I know that when I was drinking alcohol, if somebody was just to stand there and point their finger and go, you need to stop doing this and that, it would never work. It'd make me drink. I'd just be like sticking my middle finger up. Like, I'm not listening to anybody. So that's not my intention. But what I can promise you is that if you don't click off this video and get distracted by Mr. Beast or what's going on in America right now or anything like that, if you can just sit down and watch this video from start to finish, then it can change your life. I can't promise you it's going to change your life, but it could. But it's not going to be for everybody, right? The person who's going to get the most value from this video is somebody who is questioning their relationship with alcohol, right? You might not be in that tremendous amount of pain that I was in, but you're really starting to think about, what is alcohol doing for me? If you're asking yourself this question, then you're going to get a ton from this video. If you know that alcohol is causing you pain, I promise you this video will blow your mind. It'll be one of the best things you've ever watched. And the third is, in fact, there is no third. There's two types of people that are going to get a lot of value from this video. If you're not one of those two people, it's probably not for you. You probably should click off the video. But if you are one of those two people, I would recommend watching this entire thing. And what I'm going to do is, to make this video valuable for you, is I'm going to take my 6.5 years of experience as a non-drinker. I'm going to take the work that I've done with hundreds of private clients, plus the thousands of people that I've helped on YouTube. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transport myself back in time to the version of me that was drinking. And I'm going to give myself 8 lessons. So it's almost like, what would have I, with all the experience I've had, want to have heard 6.5 years ago when I was trying to stop drinking. So we're going to go through 8 lessons, and let's just dive into it. I don't need to persuade you to watch the video anymore. You know this is going to be good. So the very first thing that I would tell myself is, number 1, is that you are not alone. So why do I say this? Why would I want to have heard this? So when I drank, I did feel like I drank more than everybody else, right? Don't get me wrong, I did have some friends that would drink a lot, but I also had a lot of friends that were like these normal drinkers, right? They'd have half a bottle of wine and stop, or they might have 1 pint of beer and go home and then not continue drinking, which was quite foreign to me. I might do that 1 out of 10 times. But I had friends that did this all the time. And if we think about it, in our immediate social circle, unless we have a social circle filled with heavy drinkers, which might be the case, that wasn't the case for me. But in our immediate social circle, we will often have friends that drink alcohol, but they don't seem to have the same relationship that you might have. And that can feel, a little bit lonely. We can feel like we're the only people suffering with this problem. And when we start trying to find a solution, we can feel alone. We might want to stop drinking alcohol, but then all our friends, our family, our, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, all the people in our life might look at us and think, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to stop this great thing? Why would you want to not drink? That can feel quite lonely. That can be a really strange feeling because it almost feels like alcohol is the normal thing to do in society. And I'll get into why it's not in a bit. But I would remind myself that, Leon, you are not alone in this. There are tens of millions of people suffering with the exact same problem. And this is really important. It's massive because quite often we'll see people that drink like normal drinkers, but we don't see what's really happening, right? We don't see what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what they do. We don't know if they've got secret problems. And, I speak to people all the time that are like, I hide my drinking from my wife. I'll live with her and, I'll get like a bottle of drink and I'll pour vodka in it and she never even has a clue. So we don't know what people are suffering with. But the problem is massive, right? Alcohol problems dominate society. They're everywhere. And you're really not alone in this. And I want to make that clear. I've dealt with this. I've seen so many people. I've worked with some clients that have got billion-dollar companies, $100 million companies, multiple clients like this, people that have got everything, and they still suffer with this. So you're not alone in this. I've worked with doctors, I've worked with therapists, I've worked with people who help other people stop drinking, and they've still got this problem. I've even seen people who have got stop drinking companies that still drink. I mean, what the heck? Like, you're not alone here. So many people suffer with it. And yeah, that's the first thing, right? Because when you know you're not alone, you start to feel a bit better. Have I got a rubber? Yeah. So let's get into the second thing. That is rubbish, but hopefully that's good. So the next thing is I would remind myself that my drinking is not my fault. So that might come as a bit of a shock because we can blame ourselves for over drinking, right? We can feel like we're the problem in all of this. And I used to think this way. In fact, there was a period in the 10 years that I was drinking for that I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. And when you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, you are really made to believe that you are the problem here. It's not the drug, it's you. And you have got a disease, a genetic disorder. There's no known cure. You're born with it. You're going to die with it. It never leaves you. And I mean, that made me feel so disempowered. I didn't feel good about this, like, oh great, I can solve my drinking problem and get on with my life. No, I felt guilty. I felt like I'm a failure. It was the worst feeling ever. But let's really just break this down. Like, whose fault is your drinking? Well, think about it like this. When you're born, we are born into a society with beliefs, right? We've got like these collective beliefs, like murder is wrong. Stealing is wrong. The 10 Commandments, right? We've got beliefs that we all buy into that benefit society. But then there are certain beliefs that were put there by other people. I'll give you a weird example. I remember I read this book about intermittent fasting, and it had like this weird conspiracy angle, but when I heard it, I was like, oh, wow. And he said the word breakfast means break fast. That doesn't mean you need to eat a bowl of high carbohydrate cereal at 7 a.m. before your kids go to school, right? Just fill them up with sugar. And he said that this idea of breakfast was that we should eat cereal and, this crappy food was put there by these huge companies that sell cereal. Now listen, is that a conspiracy? Yeah, maybe, but I think there's a massive element of truth to it. The idea that we should eat cereal for breakfast was put there by somebody else. And he then argued that breaking the fast can happen whenever you first eat. It's not about eating in the morning. And I remember hearing that, I was like, whoa. It was like, I had this belief for so long that breakfast meant you eat a bowl of cereal at 7 a.m. because I read this book when I was 18. And yeah, that really just shifted my perspective. And I thought, damn, that's deep. Now let's bring this back to alcohol. We're born into a world that sees alcohol a very specific way. What is alcohol? It's poison. There's no other way around it. It's a poisonous substance that's also a highly addictive drug. If alcohol was discovered today, it would be the highest schedule of drug in America, a Class A drug in England. These celebrities that own these alcohol, massive billion-dollar companies, Conor McGregor, The Rock, George Clooney, these people that have built these crazy businesses and all this wealth, they would be seen as the same as a Mexican cartel drug lord. Alcohol would be so valuable that there would be armies built around supplying it. Because that's just how bad it is. When we're born, though, do we get told that? No, do we heck? What do we see? We put on the news and we see this advertisement of these guys that are all hanging out drinking a pint of beer. We see sophistication, right? We see alcohol linked to some kind of success. And it couldn't be further from the truth. When we're born into this world, we basically sign this invisible contract that says that you're going to see alcohol this way, whether you like it or not, but nobody ever asks you about signing the contract. You're just born into this world, and that's it. So that's the first thing, right? It's how we view alcohol, and that was put there by somebody else, right? That was not put there by you. You were not born thinking this way. You were born into a world that has this collective belief. But beliefs can change. The same way I was talking to you about breakfast, right? The same way that the Aztecs used to chop people's heads off, and then when they chop the head off, they think that the sun would keep going across the sky. Right? With modern day science, we know that that's nonsense, but the Aztecs believed it and slaughtered millions upon millions of people. That was a wrong belief. The same way that alcohol is this thing that's going to help us is also an incorrect belief. We can change these beliefs, but if we're born into a world with this collective belief, then how can it be your fault that you drink? So that's the first thing. It's the worldview that people have on alcohol. The second thing is the property of alcohol itself. Alcohol is a diuretic, which means that you drink it and you're dehydrated. It makes you want to drink more. So when I went to AA and I was told that I was an alcoholic, nobody ever said that, well, hang on, you're drinking something that dehydrates you, so of course you want to drink more. That's the nature of the drug, not you as a person. And then put into account that alcohol also lowers your inhibitions, right? It makes you not think about future consequences. You're so in the moment that you just drink and drink and drink. So hang on, we've got these two things. We've got this conditioning, these beliefs, these ideas that alcohol is a good thing, combined with it being one of the most sinister and addictive drugs on the planet. And you're going to think this is your fault. It ain't your fault. I'm here to tell you today that this is not your fault. And I'm not doing this to make you feel better, right? Because we're going to get into some actual concrete steps on some really deep ideas in a minute. But I want you to feel a sense of relief, because when I realized this, I felt so good. I was like, well, hang on, that's right. If you've read Stop Drinking books before, these ideas might not be new to you. But when I found out it wasn't my fault, I just felt this sense of, I can relax. Which is a great time for us to get into the third point. So, whilst it's not your fault, it is something. It's 100% your responsibility to fix the problem. So, I want to make you feel relief, but I also want to bring it back down to earth, right? When I stopped drinking alcohol, I had this mentor, and this mentor told me that where you are in life is 100% your design. Now, whilst it isn't your fault that you've been drinking, and those ideas were put there, and it's a highly addictive drug, whatever, it's still your responsibility to fix this problem. whilst you may not have made a true logical choice of whether or not to drink alcohol, you can make a logical decision to change. And I'm not here to, I wanted to make you feel good in that second point, but I'm not here to absolve you of all responsibility and then think, well, it's not my fault, I'll keep drinking. No. That's not my intention. It's your responsibility to fix this problem. And I'm going to unpack this over the next 5 points a little bit deeper. But I want you to, if you do one thing while watching this video, is at least take responsibility for the problem, right? Or at least the solution to the problem. So let's just get to the fourth point, because we need to go deeper. This might not make sense right now. So here's the thing. If it's your responsibility to fix this, we need to recognize that nobody else can fix it for you. So that might sound a little bit disempowering, a little bit harsh, but it isn't. I've made 600 YouTube videos, maybe 700. I've done thousands of calls with people. And what I tell people is that I can show you a path, but I can give you steps, right? Especially if you join my coaching program, there's a full system for you to follow. But this isn't like, getting your house cleaned, where somebody walks into your house, does the work, leaves, job done. This ain't like that. This is totally different. When it comes to stopping drinking alcohol, nobody can fix it for you. They can show you a path, but you need to walk it. That is so important. So let me just check these notes. So there are a lot of people that make content about alcohol, right? I'm not the only one. But I've got one set of experiences and I've got one way of doing things that resonates with a certain kind of person. And for those people, when they hear my message, when they hear my ideas, when they hear my beliefs around alcohol, and they start putting those beliefs into their mind instead of that ridiculous societal view that we have, it clicks for them. They're like, oh, that's what I was missing. Is that going to work for everybody? No, of course not. Somebody else might, hear somebody talk about how alcohol was a form of escapism for childhood trauma, and then they went and revisited the trauma and boom, they fix it that way. Listen, people are going to find different solutions that work for them. But when it comes to actually stopping drinking alcohol, right, what you want to do is you want to find people who have got the beliefs and ideas and they're where you want to be. And you want to listen to a few different people. Don't just listen to me, right? Find a few others. But eventually you'll find somebody where you're like, this guy makes sense, or this lady makes sense, like this is it. But the thing is, people might try and sell you books, sell you courses, sell you programs, which is cool. But it's not a magic pill. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to fix, and you need to walk the path. You can have people, like I said, they can guide you. You'll have people that have already walked that path and they can show you a way. But it's a bit like, I'll give you an example, a bit like meditation, right? Or I don't know if you've ever looked into Zen Buddhism and these things. I've been reading quite a lot about it at the moment. I find it very interesting. But what a lot of these people, like this Zen Buddhism stuff says is, you can have this master and you could learn everything that the master says. And then you could then have an intellectual debate with somebody about Zen and meditation and a practice and sitting and all this stuff. You could have an intellectual debate by studying what the master says, but nothing will account for a lack of experience, a lack of practice. It's the exact same with alcohol. I can sit here till I'm blue in the face and tell you all of these things, but you need to walk the path. And I think that's why a lot of people struggle with alcohol. People don't struggle to hire a cleaner and get the house cleaned, right? That's just like somebody comes in, does the job, and it's done. But with this is, you actually need to apply some sort of effort. So, you might need to do some study. What I teach in my program is using a mental model called first principles thinking, and that's where we break the problem down into its component parts, right? I've done the research, I've done the study, I've put it into really bite-sized individual component parts that people can watch in video format, but I can't watch those videos for you. And I also can't, well, hang on. Let me just check. We'll come back to that point in a minute. But I can't do the work for you. I can make it easier. But you need to know that it's your responsibility to fix. It sounds harsh, but nobody's coming to save you. People will be there to help you, but you need to walk the path. I told myself that. And you know what I'd feel if somebody told me that when I was still drinking? I'd feel like, yeah, and I can do that. And you can do it as well. You can walk this path. Even if you failed 100 times already, you've tried everything, AA, all that stuff, and it hasn't worked for you, it doesn't matter. Because you can try again, right? We can always try one more time. If you think about it, every single person who has managed to successfully stop drinking alcohol, all they did was try one last time, like one last time. Anyway, let's get to the fifth point. And the fifth lesson that I would tell myself back when I was drinking, and it's this. Everything. Oh, my writing's getting worse. I'm in a bad position. Everything is going to be okay. So, when we are trying to stop drinking alcohol, the biggest thing that stops us is fear. So, when I drank for those 10 years, what stopped me from truly stopping drinking for the rest of my life was fear. And it was this fear that somehow life is going to be worse. It was this fear that I'm not going to be able to socialize. I'm not going to be as outgoing. I'm not going to be as interesting. I'm not going to be able to relax. I'm not going to be able to enjoy myself. And I had this fear that life will be worse as a result of stopping drinking. And it was a fear. Totally irrational. But we'll get to that. And you almost get this identity crisis. A lot of people out there, myself included, we actually create this identity of being a drinker. I used to think of myself as somebody that, would get everybody else drunk. They'd be the life and soul of the party. They'd be pouring drinks for everybody. Oh, go on, let's have one. Let's go out. Let's do this. Let's do that. And I had this almost like this party boy identity. It's a bit cringe looking back. But the biggest thing that stops most people, and it may have stopped you as well, is this sense of fear that life is going to be worse off. And I don't know if you've heard that acronym before, but it's like fear is false evidence appearing real, FEAR. And this is 100% false evidence. The problem, though, is the methods that we use, right? We'll get to this in a minute. But when we use willpower to stop drinking alcohol, we have alcohol on a pedestal, right? We keep it on a pedestal, which means we have to resist. And the more that we resist, the more that we want the thing. So then we live our life miserable as non-drinkers, right? There's much better methods out there. But, without going into my programming too much detail, because that's not my intention with this video. My intention is just to give you as much information as I can. I just tell myself that everything's going to be okay. I have nothing to be afraid of. That's so important. Because you have nothing to be afraid of. Even though you might feel a sense of fear, I just remind myself that on the other side of that is freedom. So let's get into the sixth thing, because I was kind of getting to it then. But the sixth thing, and this is where the penny's going to start dropping. This stuff is powerful. Trying to stop drinking alcohol my writing is terrible. Trying to stop drinking alcohol, oh, this is getting worse, never works. So this is something that won't resonate with everybody. And this is something that's very close to my experience trying to stop drinking alcohol. But what I found is that when I tried to stop drinking alcohol, I failed. Because what does trying mean, right? Do you try to brush your teeth in the morning? No. You just do it, right? You're not trying to make a sandwich. You just make a decision, make a sandwich. But with alcohol I used to start every attempt to not drink alcohol with this feeling of I'm going to really try. I'm going to give it my best. And what am I doing there? If I say I'm going to give it my best, I'm subcommunicating that there's a chance of failure, right? There's a way out. Oh, I'm going to try, but if I fail, I fail. Do you know what I mean? And that's, it's nothing but using willpower. And when we use willpower, like I said a second ago, alcohol stays really high on a pedestal, and it just never works. So I would tell myself to stop trying. Just stop trying. Like, if you want to drink, drink, but stop trying to stop. Because here's one of the bad things when you try to stop drinking, is you create a reference experience. So I've had hundreds of failed attempts to stop drinking alcohol, which meant that every next failed attempt got harder and harder and harder until I finally stopped. But like my drinking got worse and worse over time, right? It was like this thing that just got worse and worse. If you plotted it on a graph, the drinking would just boom, 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 boom. And I was pretty sure I probably had 5 years, 10 years left to live. There's no way I could keep doing what I was doing. And because it got worse, I had to try harder and harder and harder. And it's not the answer. It just never worked. Every time I tried, I'd fail. So what do you do instead? You ready for the gold? You ready for the gold? This is what you've been waiting for. The next 2 points. Once you decide to quit alcohol, it's as easy as making a sandwich. Oh my gosh, I bet you can't even read that. So, like, there's a difference between trying to do something and deciding. The most important thing I did 6.5 years ago is I stopped this mentality of trying to not drink. What I did is I made a true decision, an absolute clear decision that I am no longer drinking alcohol. And it was a switch. I mean, it was that easy. So rather than going out, so what ended up happening is I made that decision and I went to bars. I went to nightclubs. In fact, my fiancée, who's about to be my wife, I met her in a bar. The first thing I did was buy her a beer because it didn't affect me anymore. I wasn't trying to not drink. If I went to my now soon-to-be wife and I saw her and I was trying to not drink alcohol and I bought her a beer, guess what I would have done? Well, I'm trying to not drink, so I'll just have one. You see the difference? Because I'd made a decision, I could put myself in any situation. I could be with anybody drinking alcohol and it was fine. I mean, I lived in Bangkok, I lived in Bali, I lived in Chiang Mai, Thailand, I live in Dubai now. I've been all over the world. I've been in so many nice establishments where people are boozing. And because I've made a true decision to not drink alcohol ever again, an absolute decision, it's the easiest thing I've ever done. It requires no effort. But the problem is what happens is that fear that I was talking about earlier stops people from actually deciding because they're never able to change their perception. They continue to have those societal beliefs around alcohol that it's this beneficial thing that's going to help us. So they have the fear that life is going to be worse when they stop drinking alcohol. Listen, if you want to be able to decide to stop drinking alcohol, you must fix your worldview. It is everything. Reframing how you view alcohol will change your life. And this is what I did, right? I didn't just decide like that, right? There was a process. I studied, I read books, and my mindset started changing. I stopped seeing alcohol as something that made my life better, that enhanced my life, and everything just shifted, right? Like it was like, oh, hang on, alcohol's this way. Why don't I just make a decision to stop drinking? Boom, done. 10 years of struggle, and I fixed it literally in a split second, and that was awesome. And what ended up happening is I changed on an identity level. I changed the stories and ideas in my head. So instead of seeing myself as a struggling person that was trying to stop drinking alcohol, it's like, no, just don't drink. That's who I am now. And every time I went to a bar, I went with a friend that was drinking alcohol, I went to a restaurant and someone was drinking alcohol. Every time somebody offered me a beer and I said no, it got stronger and stronger and stronger. Instead of when you're trying to stop drinking alcohol, it gets harder and harder and harder. So hopefully you can see the distinction here. Now, if you want help reframing the way that you actually view alcohol and you want to go through a process, my process, first principles thinking, then if you click the link in the description, you can book a short phone call and we can jump on a quick call together and we can just see if my method could make sense for you. We get a 92 to 97% success rate. We've helped, like I said, these massive clients, and not just massive clients, right? A lot of business owners, professionals, yeah, so if you want to see if that's a good match, then click the link down below. We are accepting new clients this month. But let's get into the 8th point. And this one is the big one. And this is where it gets seriously exciting. I would tell myself, if I could go back to that version of me 6.5 years ago that was still drinking alcohol, I would tell myself that you will become unrecognizable. And listen, I'm from England, right? We don't put Z's in things, we put S's in things. I don't know if Americans spell it with a Z, but I put a Z to make you happy if you're American. So what I mean by this is the person I am today is nothing like the person I was 6.5 years ago when I was drinking. When I was drinking, I was fickle. I had this lack of self-belief, and it was all related to alcohol because I kept trying to stop drinking. Like I said, trying, basically that path to failure. And listen, don't get me wrong, there are people that try to stop drinking alcohol and do stop for the rest of their life. It just wasn't working for me. So I'm not knocking everybody, I'm trying to give myself those lessons, and hopefully you gain something from this. I lost my trail of thought now. Let me go back to the beginning. So I told myself I would become unrecognizable because the person I am today is totally different. That's where I was. So when I would promise myself that I wouldn't drink, and then I drank, my self-esteem would take a hit. Right? I'd just feel a little bit worse about myself, and I'd have a worse relationship with myself. So let's just spill this out into other areas of your life, because at the end of the day, stopping drinking is the first step to getting what you really want. If you want better health, better relationships, more money, better business, whatever, stopping drinking is the first step, and then it's what you do after stopping drinking that counts. But the problem is when I drank is I would break a really serious promise to myself. So then that would spill into other areas of my life. So if I wrote down, a goal of squatting 200 kg, right? If I wrote down that goal, I'd know in my heart I'm never going to follow through. That sucks, right? That's a really bad thing. But after I stopped drinking and made that true decision, my self-esteem started just going boom, 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 boom. Because I'd finally made that promise to myself, made that decision, and stuck with it. And I'm telling you, that spilled into every area of my life, right? I was able to commit to building an online business, right? Doing what I wanted to do. What I do isn't for everybody, right? But it was exactly what I wanted to do when I stopped drinking alcohol. But the only reason why I was able to do it is because I'd made that commitment to not drink alcohol, and I followed through with it. Sure, not poisoning myself was fantastic, but it was also about that relationship and self-trust that I built with myself. So, if I could go back in time, I would just say, man, you're not going to recognize yourself. If I could see what I was like today when I was drinking, I'd feel like, oh my gosh, that's who I want to be. I want to be somebody that's committed, right? That's part of why I'm getting married, because I want to be somebody that commits to things. And hey, listen, it's taken me a long time to actually to pop the question, but I've done it, right? It's a commitment. And I told myself, when you don't drink and you stick with it, you can commit yourself to some seriously cool things in life. Way cooler than you could as a drinker. And life will take a totally new path. And that's what I really want to end on this point for you, because stopping drinking is it's easy, right? It's the easiest thing I've ever done. I just don't drink. How's that hard? All I do is don't do that. It's not hard, right? It's all in your head if you think it's hard. What's hard is running a marathon, right? That's hard. That takes effort. What's hard is, I don't know, what's going on in Ukraine. I mean, imagine that. That's hard. Stopping drinking alcohol is easy. But then it's what you do after that that counts, right? It's what you do in the gym with your fitness. It's what you do in your marriage. It's what you do with your children. It's what you do in your career, in your business. It's what you do in your local community. It's what you do in your church, in your mosque, in your spirituality, in whatever it is. That's what counts. That's what's going to make your life better. Stopping drinking is the first step. And that's a big part of my program. We do coaching where it's all about creating that vision, going towards what's next. But hope you like this video. Leave me a comment down below. It'd be awesome to hear from you guys, and have a great day.